Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Veronica Famat, and I am the Policy and Practice Dissemination Coordinator at the Center for Evaluation and Educational Effectiveness, or CEEE, here at Cal State Long Beach. I hope everybody's having a good morning thus far. We are excited to host today's webinar, Creating Sense of Belonging for STEM Students through U.S. Department of Education funded grants at Hispanic-Serving Institutions. This webinar is a part of a series of webinars and briefs dedicated to examining and fostering effective practices to support the success of first-generation, low-income, and/or Hispanic students in STEM at Hispanic-Serving Institutions. These webinars and briefs are part of a broader project that has received funding from the U.S. Department of Education. CEEE is part of a partnership that involves 10 California State University campuses working together to learn collectively about how best to support HSI-STEM student success. Our goal with this project is to broaden the conversation beyond California and the CSU, share what we're learning, and engage with our colleagues nationally to identify challenges, opportunities, and promising practices. For more information on this project or to view some of our previous webinars, please visit our website shown here. Also, if you have any questions regarding the project, feel free to email me directly, and you'll see my emails listed here as well. So before we get started with our presentation, I would like to point out a few features available to everyone on Zoom. First, you'll notice that if you hover your mouse over your screen, you should have the availability to use the chat function. Sometimes this is listed if you click under the More button. So you will be able to communicate with folks using that chat function. Also, I will be monitoring the webinar the entire time. So if you're experiencing any audio or visual issues, please use the chat function to alert me. Also, some folks in the past who have experienced audio issues were able to call in and get a better quality in terms of audio that way. In terms of Q&A, we will hold a Q&A session towards the end of the presentation, at which point you'll be able to pose questions to our presenters. If someone in the audience posts a question that you like, or you have the ability to hit the thumbs up icon that shows up right underneath the question, and that thumbs up icon, once you push it, it upvotes the question to the top of the queue. So that's kind of a very helpful feature. Lastly, the webinar is being recorded and will be closed captioned and uploaded to our website. Everyone who registered for the webinar will receive an email with information on how to access the recording once it is available. So today we have two panelists from CSU Bakersfield, Dr. Charles Lamb and Dr. Jamie Paschal, of the project, A Guided Pathway Solution, GPS to STEM Degree Completion. And we also have two panelists from CSU Stanislaus. We have Iqbal Atwal and Dr. Harold Stanislaus of Project STEM Success. With that being said, I would like to now turn it over to our first presenter, Harold, who will be starting us off. Harold?
We're ready.
There you go. You should be able to put up your presentation now.
Thank you, Veronica, and good morning. And we thought we would start with a general overview of why we believe that sense of belonging is such an important issue for students who are majoring in STEM. And so we'll start with that, and then we'll talk about how CSU Bakersfield is addressing sense of belonging on their campus. And then we will return to talk about how on Stanislaus campus we're addressing sense of belonging as well. And this diagram here illustrates the primary issue with students who are majoring in STEM and getting those students to graduate in STEM. At most institutions, about half of the students who enter with a STEM major switch to a different major before they graduate. So this diagram illustrates some of the patterns of switching that we see on our campus, where the lines, the arrows there represent students who are switching from one major to another. So we have our three of our most popular majors listed here. The thicker arrows show that more students are leaving. So for example, you see that the bulk of the biology students are leaving from biology and going to psychology. Very few go in the other direction. So we have very few students who started off in a psychology major switching into biology. Similarly, you have a fair number of students switching out of biology and into liberal studies, but very few going in the other direction. But that pattern isn't true for all majors. So we see about an equal number of students switching back and forth between liberal studies and psychology. So we've on our campus for about the last 7 years, we've been trying to understand why students are changing majors, and we do that partly through a survey. And this is an illustration of some of the results we've obtained from that survey. And what we show here is the percentage of students who switch or declare a major because they feel they belong more in the new major than in the old major, or in the case of declaring a major, they feel they belong in that new major. And you see that that arrow there is pointing to the highest percentage. That's for students who start off in a STEM major and then switch out to a non-STEM major. So 70% of students who leave STEM cite sense of belonging as one of the reasons that they are leaving STEM. And it's not the only reason. So students typically on this survey will select about 4 or 5 reasons. We present them with an option of 19 reasons as well as an open-ended option. But the single most common reason for leaving a major is because the students feel they belong more in their new major than in their old major, and that's a particular issue for students who are leaving STEM. And this slide here just illustrates some of the comments we've received from students, and you might want to look at those very briefly. And for me, the take-home message is that sense of belonging is not a very simple concept. It's very complex, and for different students, it means different things. On our campus, we think of sense of belonging at 3 different levels. So we think of students belonging to Stanislaus State. Students might feel also that they belong to their major, but when you're talking about STEM students, they also will hopefully believe that they belong in the scientific community, so they have a sense of belonging to the sciences. So we regard sense of belonging as a critical issue in terms of helping to retain students within STEM. Then the question becomes, how do we go about trying to improve that sense of belonging? And we'll turn things over to Bakersfield now to talk about how they're doing that on their campus.
Sorry, everyone. I am sharing my screen and forgot to unmute. So now I'm unmuting and sharing my screen. All right, so everyone can see my slides. So my name is Jamie Paschel, and I am sitting here with Charles Lamb.
Hello.
And we work at California State University, Bakersfield in the Central Valley. We started a program in 2016 called the Impact of a Guided Pathway Solution on STEM Sense of Belonging. This program was created from a grant, which I'll talk about in a moment. First, I want to talk a little bit about our institution. So we have roughly 11,000 students, mainly undergrad. We do have several master's programs and some doctoral students. We are a Hispanic-serving institution with 64% underrepresented minority students, and of that, roughly 61% are Latinx. In the fall, we get about 1,500 new students, and we are one of the institutions that is not declining in our student population. In fact, every year we are increasing, and this is, this creates other problems like space and classroom availability. Of the 1,500 that our campus gets every year, more than a third, so 600 of those start in STEM. But what we find is that we lose close to 30% of our STEM students after their first year. And so in 2016, we applied for and were granted a Hispanic-Serving Institutions STEM Department of Education grant. It's 5 years. From this, we created our program, which I'll talk about, as well as it provided us the opportunity to build a student advising and success center, which we did not have before. We were very spread out. And so now we have a building that houses all of the advising staff or anyone that deals with advising issues, as well as provides the students a study space. So we have a study space, which is a student's, we like to think of it as a second space for them to study, which has all movable furniture and a screen for them to use. So the program that we created, we call it the Pathways Program for short. The students that enter the program are placed into learning communities. They're cohort enrolled every fall. The students are provided intrusive advising. So what I mean by that, because I think the term intrusive advising is it's a hot term, is our advisor sees the students 3 times a semester and additionally pulls them when she hears of any academic or social emotional issues that are happening with the students. And I'll talk a little bit about how she gets those a little bit later. The students are provided a peer mentor. They are required to attend a weekly workshop. We provide them textbooks and tablet rental. They are sent on an annual major-specific field trip. We provide them funding for student faculty research. This can start as early as their freshman year and move when they leave the program, because it's only for their first academic year. When they leave the program, we will continue to fund their student research throughout their time with us. And then in addition to what the students receive, we meet monthly with the faculty that have students in their classroom so that we can talk about streamlining curriculum and any issues that our students might be having. So our first cohort had roughly 40 students in it, and it was an opt-in program. We realized we were not getting a lot of students that opted in, and so the second year we changed it to an opt-out program. We're currently in our 3rd cohort. So our first cohort opt-in had roughly 40 students. Second cohort opt-out, we ended up with roughly 80. And this year in our fall 19 cohort and was also opt-out, we have 140 students. This gives you a visualization of what is happening in our program all at once at the same time, with the exception of what's on the left. So our students come in as freshmen. These are first-time freshmen. They sign an agreement that says they will not change their schedule. They will see their advisor when requested. They will attend their peer mentor meetings. And then they have a separate orientation which is in addition to their on-campus orientation. At that orientation, the students are run through team building activities. They meet other students in their cohort, in their major. They meet their peer mentor, and they start forming that relationship immediately. We also have faculty who will be teaching their classes attend that orientation. The core program includes those items which I talked about in the last slide. While the core program is working, we monitor their progress through peer mentor and advising communication, and the faculty also meet with us who are monitoring lab research. So in addition to the core program, we have a lot of engagement activities, and I'll get into these as I go forward in the slides, but you can see we have things happening both on and off campus. So the peer mentors that are hired are a junior or a senior in the student's major. So if a student is a biology student, their peer mentor is a biology peer mentor. With the only exception that we have this year is we have one physics student. And so we put the physics student with a math peer mentor who has a minor in physics. It was just difficult to find a physics junior or a senior that wanted to mentor one student. These peer mentors are hired and they are put through a 4-day strengths-based training at the beginning of the semester. They attend and facilitate the students' weekly workshops. We then meet with them every other week. So I meet with them for leadership training and the advisor meets with them to talk about academic and social emotional issues of the students. In addition, the advisor has a running spreadsheet that both the peer mentors and the advisor can update so that the advisor can stay up on everything that's happening with the student. In the beginning, it was a lot of negative comments were made, like students are not studying, students are having some issues, and that has progressed now into a lot of wins as well. And so what those wins do is it allows the advisor and myself, anyone in the program, when we see the students out and about to say like, hey, heard you did great on the test, and it's really helped with their self-esteem. The the peer mentor is required to meet with their student at least once a week and have an additional touch point. That meeting once a week must be in person, so often they'll have a group meeting, and then they'll do individualized meetings on top of that, as well as as well as study times, and then they organize activities for the students to engage with the campus and community.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. One of the attendees is wondering if you can switch it to presentation mode because the lettering is really small.
I thought I was in presentation mode. So I see presentation mode.
We're able to see the next slide on the right-hand side. I think maybe Iqbal, Harold, you.
Jamie, if you can click on.
Is that it?
Yeah, you have to click on duplicate slideshow, then it'll just have the big screen.
Okay, so I'm good now?
Now it looks too enlarged. Maybe escape.
How's that?
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, so the student engagement activities. Okay, wait, a question. Can you see my question and answer box?
No, we just see the one slide that you have in front of us on student engagement.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right. So student engagement activities that have happened to date, the peer mentors and those who run the program have arranged scavenger hunts. We do the study groups. There have been some stress relieving soccer games, board game nights, movie nights. The peer mentors run their students through team building activities. This is especially important to create that sense of belonging with one another. And then we've had ping pong tournaments, and at the end of the year, the peer mentors create awards for their students. So you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, those are some awards. The students participating in a study session in the top left. And then the other activities are students making t-shirts and students who won an award, as well as participating in some engagement activities. So the study nights that we arrange for the students, the peer mentors have weekly study sessions, and then we have specifically study nights. For these, we collaborate with the tutoring centers, we provide food, and the tutoring centers provide the tutors. We also invite the SIs who are embedded in our major specific courses to attend. And then every semester we have what we call STEM major mixers. We have 3 per term. This is an evening where we invite industry leaders. We have a theme per mixer. So as an example, we had a pre-nursing mixer, which is the picture on the top right, where individuals who work in a nursing field, so we had a nurse practitioner, we had a surgical nurse, we had a CNO come and talk about a day in the life and their college journey, so how they got there. In addition, at these mixers, we have a grad school prep or a prep for resume so that the students can see what they need to add to the resume to be competitive, to get into a career or into grad school. And after the the leaders have spoken, have like done their talk, we actually have the students mix and mingle. So we have food, we have tables set up, and the speakers walk around and talk with the students. What we have found is that the students actually stay later than our time because they engage so well with the industry leaders. This has been really helpful. And then in addition, we send the students to that major specific field trip that I spoke about. That's the bottom right picture. These are students who went to the Davis Pre-Health Conference. We have them create their resume, so they take their resume with them to these conferences, and we talk about dressing for success before they attend. At the weekly workshops, which the students are required to attend, we cover topics to help the students transition to college life successfully. So we cover topics like how to email a professor, how and when to approach the professor's office hours, how to navigate your portal, and then we also talk about things like how do you budget as a new college student? How do you have asset-based thinking when you have just failed an exam? Why it's important to have self-care? How do you rent your first apartment? And why do you question items listed in a lease? So we try to help students understand it's not just the things that are happening in college that are going to impact their success. It's things happening outside of our campus that can contribute to their success in the program. As a way of assessment, every year we look at the year-end latent data, which I won't talk about, but we do a quantitative and qualitative data similar to the one that Harold spoke about at Stanislaus. And what we have found is some themes in our assessment results that students talk about, a sense of belonging, psychological safety, well-being, that they engage with others. And here's a few comments that we have received over the years. And these are directly from their open-ended questions, so their qualitative responses. So as you can see, they find their peer mentoring is really impactful, as well as the program helping them understand that they're not alone, that they're going to be okay, that the program made them comfortable with new experiences, and that they realize that relying on others is important in order for them to succeed and help them realize that they're not alone. And that is all I have. Charles and I are open to your questions if you want to connect, if you want to ask anything or talk about the program and how you might implement something similar or even a piece of it. There's so much going on, and I only talked about a very, very small amount. You're welcome to contact us, and our information is listed on this slide. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name's Iqbal Atwal. I'm the director for the STEM Success Program, and please give me a few seconds while I get our PowerPoint up. Okay, there we go. I apologize. I forgot to unmute myself. It just, the nervousness takes over when you're doing a webinar and there's technology involved. Is everybody able to see our slides?
I can see the slide now, but it keeps blacking out. I don't know why. It's a little weird. Apologize for that, folks.
I hope it's working now.
Okay, it looks like it's staying put. All right, thanks. Let me mute myself.
All right, everyone. So my name is Iqbal Atwal, director for the STEM Success Program, and here's a map of California to sort of help you guys visualize our location. We are located in the Great Central Valley of California, about 90 minutes away from both Sacramento and San Francisco. And our colleagues at CSU Bakersfield are also located in the valley with us. They're about 3 hours away from us. But here's the location of our campus. And talking about our student body, we have around 9,000 undergraduate students, which does include 68% first generation students. And 66% of our students are Pell eligible. And Hispanic students make up about 55% of our population, and we also have 66% female. So we're very proud of our diverse campus. Our program here at Stan State is called STEM Success, and we sort of took a spin on the word STEM, and it stands for Students Transitioning to Engaged and Motivated Success. So that's what STEM Success here stands for us. We were awarded a U.S. Department of Education Title III HSI-STEM grant in 2016, and we are just entering into our year 4 of our 5-year grant. And here's a picture of our students on one of the field trips and the faculty showing them how to look at biodiversity. And on the left-hand side, these are our students in a chemistry lab looking at density of liquids such as oil and vinegar. So the first program I will talk about that really creates a strong sense of belonging for our STEM students here on campus is the STEM Discovery Academy program, or SDA. SDA is a summer STEM immersion program for incoming freshmen and transfer students. The program requires students to stay in the campus dorms for 2 weeks, and we do cover the cost of students' residential and meals throughout the 2 weeks, so there's no financial burden on the students. Currently, we offer 2 sessions, so we offer 2 2-week sessions with 24 participants in each session. This allows us to serve 48 students during the summer. And we try to recruit around 18 freshmen and 8 transfer students for each session of SDA. And the student participants get divided into smaller groups, and each group is assigned a STEM peer mentor. The peer mentor consists of experienced STEM students on campus, and some are also past SDA participants who really enjoyed the experience and want to give back to the program as peer mentors. And we also offered peer mentor training, and during their training we sort of describe what their roles will be, and we also do a little bit role playing to get the peer mentors familiar with conversations and situations that might arise on the job. And really the peer mentors are the glue that hold the program together. They live in the dorms with the students. They participate in all activities with the student. They're really the engine that drives student engagement throughout SDA. And we also have 2 faculty leads. They sort of take charge of making sure that we have strong faculty participation, and they sort of put together all the activities. Majority of the activities are led by faculty, which we think is a great thing for this program, because over time we see this a strong connection between the students and the faculty that develops even before the students have started their college career. So when they arrive here on campus, it's their first day, they already know which faculty are from which department, and major advising at our campus is done by faculty. So for our SDA participants, they already have a strong idea of who their potential major advisors can be. Talking about the activities that take place during STEM Discovery Academy, you can sort of segment our activities into these 5 key areas. We have a wide variety of labs, workshops, and field trips, which are all designed to increase the student STEM immersion at the 3 levels that Harold had talked about, and also to expose them to scientific research. Usually the daily activities, they begin with a kickoff. That's always a different workshop, all designed to expose students to different topics that are involved in college going, such as financial aid, budgeting, how to buy textbooks, if you have questions, who to go to ask for help. So every day the kickoff is a different topic. And we really, one of the things with SDA is we try to make sure that, we fully take advantage of having the students here on campus. So our activities do go from pretty much the morning till about 7 p.m. And then they get some free time before it's curfew. And that's really one of the best thing about SDA is that by having the students here on campus, we receive their full commitment and participation for the whole program. And going back to the activities, majority of the SDA activities can be segmented in these 5 key areas. The first year experience activities are designed to sort of expose students to the information they need to know about being a successful college students. We do a campus scavenger hunt where they go around campus and they take group photos. And the idea is that we're trying to expose them to the various offices or services they'll need during their college career here at Stan State. But it's a fun way to expose them to these services by having a mini competition where they have to go around and take full group photos in front of as many buildings and offices as possible. We also do a library tour and a presentation about the services we offer through the library. And we also invite various speakers to come in and talk about different services offered on campus, such as we get folks coming in from the tutoring center, the academic success center. We also invite the psychological counseling center. So if our students are at any time having any challenges, they know, okay, I do have this confidential resource that I can go and talk to about any problems or issues they're having. We also do a lot of group building activities. These are some of the more fun activities where the students get to directly work with each other and also with their peer mentors. One of the activities, they have to present a skit. They get in small teams and they come up with a skit that they present to everybody. One of my favorite is the boat race. So we give students raw materials, which includes empty milk jugs, 2 broomsticks, and tape. And just by using these 3 materials, they have to create a boat that can carry 2 people. And it's under a certain time, they have to sort of get together, brainstorm, and then create these boats. And at the end, they get to race the boats. It's definitely a lot of fun, and it's definitely one of those things that after they get done with their labs, it's a fun activity to sort of break the STEM heavy material for them. But the students seem to definitely enjoy a lot. It's great fun for us to watch them sort of come up with these creative ideas of just using these raw materials to build these boats. We also do psychological interventions. These are all designed to help students sort of overcome the imposter syndrome. We do a values affirmation workshop that gives the students the opportunity to compare and contrast similarities and differences between each other's lives, sort of see, that, oh, this person might look different, but, we all sort of have similar challenges or similar experiences that we have gone through on this journey to, being college students. We also do Hero's Journey. This is a great one. We all have seen Disney movies, Finding Nemo, Frozen, Lion King. The underlying message is always that there is a hero that has fears and, they go through this journey and overcome their fears. So we sort of start off by showing them skits from Disney movies. And then the students then have to look at their own life and they have to sort of come up with a narration describing how they might have experienced challenges in their life and how either they have overcome those challenges or how they plan on overcoming those challenges. Our goal with this activity is really to, help the students with their mindset and overcoming their fears. And, sometimes their fears could be as simple as the fear of making new friends or the fear of approaching a faculty or, the fear of just asking a question. So we try to, assist them with sort of getting down to their psychosocial level and trying to assist the students. We also do STEM field trips during SDA. We take the students to California Academy of Sciences, the Monterey Bay Aquarium, Calaveras Big Tree State Park. And the idea behind these STEM field trips is to expose them to different topics in STEM as well as different careers in STEM. All field trips are led by our STEM faculty who do a mini lecture on their way. So it's bus lecture on their way to the site to make the experience more engaging for the student. We also do a lot of early engagement in STEM research for the students. So during the 2 weeks, the students participate in 8 different labs and do hands-on lab work and data collection. And we sort of end SDA with a poster symposium and celebration. So the students will usually pick a data set from one of the 8 labs and they will do a poster. Our transfer students tend to do a poster individually, and the freshmen have the option to do a poster in groups of 2 to 3. And it's really a fun event and a nice way to sort of end SDA, because the students, you know, they stand by their posters. We open it up to the campus community. Their families are able to come and attend. And, you know, the students really, it's definitely a great confidence builder for the students. And our goal with SDA is to expose the students to research. And a lot of them do transition into the other program I'm going to talk to you guys about, which is our RISE program, which stands for Research and Immersion for STEM Excellence. So RISE is our undergraduate research program, and it's open to both freshmen and transfer students, and their window of eligibility is their first 2 years here on campus. Currently, we have 40 undergraduate students and 18 faculty mentors who are conducting research on a diverse range of topics. Our topics range from dark matter to dinosaur fossils. Some students are working on gene sequencing. A lot of our computer science students are working on cybersecurity. Our physics students are working on nanomaterials, and you know, the list goes on and on. We're very proud of the diversity of research topics we have under RISE. We also have one lead faculty who is a great asset for the program. He assists with recruiting students and also faculty mentors for the program. And he is sort of the key person that matches the students with the faculty mentors. We also have an instructional support technician who assists with student training, equipment purchases, supplies, also setup and maintenance of the labs as needed. And the students do get paid. So currently we're paying our students $14 an hour. It's a great way to sort of keep them employed in STEM. It's definitely not a huge financial help for the students, but it does sort of keep them from, you know, instead of working at McDonald's, they're working in the field of STEM and sort of picking up skills that they can put on their resume, or maybe, you know, talk about when they're interviewing either for a job or maybe for a grad school. So the way our RISE program is structured, at the center of the RISE program is definitely the scientific projects that the students are working on with their faculty. We also provide research supplies for the students who are doing research. And we also, if the students are selected to present a poster at a conference, we do support their travel to the conference. And we also do monthly meetings under RISE. And these monthly meetings are designed to sort of expose students to different topics that they will encounter under RISE and on campus. We talk about designing research posters, improving presentation skills. At the meetings, we also talk about conference etiquette. So the students who, you know, are planning on going to conferences can sort of know, you know, what the dress code should be, how to introduce themselves and so forth. These meetings have been a great confidence builder for the RISE students, because not only are they able to, you know, hear all this information that's very helpful for them, but they're also able to connect with other RISE students who they might not see on a regular basis. So a bio student might see somebody else from a chemistry lab, and you know, they can sort of sit down with each other and share ideas and experiences. And our lead RISE faculty, he does sort of take the charge in organizing these meetings and coming up with the agenda for the meetings. So those are our two programs, and you know, they're definitely very active in sort of creating that sense of belonging for the students. And now we'll turn it over to Harold so he can sort of talk about the data and information we've been collecting through our two programs.
Yes, so this is just a graph illustrating how the students are distributed amongst the STEM majors on our campus. So there are 7 majors that we've decided to classify as STEM majors, and most of the students are majoring in biology. Computer science is one of the more popular ones after that, and so on. And what we've been doing is we've been tracking the retention within STEM for these students. So this first graph here is comparing students who participated in that summer program, the SDA program, Those are the black bars. We have freshmen over on the left and transfer students on the right. And we're looking at their retention within STEM. So this is combining students who've only been here for a couple of semesters with students who have been here from the very first SDA that we offered a few years ago. And then the yellow bars next to them are students who are eligible for SDA but decided not to participate. And you can see they have a lower retention rate within STEM, even for the transfer students. And we don't have that much of an issue with transfer students leaving STEM, but you see it does happen. And the students who participated in SDA who are transfers, so far none of them have left STEM, whereas other transfer students have left STEM. This next slide here is for the RISE program. That's the undergraduate research experience. And we've got here the data disaggregated for the number of semesters that students have been on campus. And you can see here where that drop-off happens. You tend to get a lot of students leaving STEM within the first 4 semesters. And you can see the yellow group, which is the students who did not participate in RISE but could have. They're down close to a 50% retention rate within STEM by their 4th semester on campus. So that's the issue that I was talking about with half the students leaving STEM. And you can see that the RISE participants, a much higher percentage of them are staying within STEM. What we've been doing for the last few semesters is sending out a survey to students at the start of each semester, trying to tap into some of their psychosocial factors. And what we're seeing here is a comparison of students who participated in one of those 2 programs, the SDA or the RISE program. Those are the black bars, and the other students who are also in those same majors but did not participate. And these differences here are not statistically significant. So students are responding to these statements, and over on the left side would be strongly disagree, and on the right side is strongly agree. Right down around a little bit below the middle, here's a direct question where we ask about, I feel like I belong in my major. And you can see there's a slightly more agreement amongst the STEM success participants than the non-participants, but it's not a statistically significant difference. And you might think, well, if these programs are really impacting belongingness, why isn't that difference bigger? And I think it speaks to a number of factors. First of all, these students are being asked at the start of the semester. At the moment, they're okay with their major. Later on, you might see a bigger split between the 2 groups in that. But again, I did speak about the different levels of belonging. And if we look at the next slide where you see statistically significant differences, you can see how some of these would relate to some of the different senses of belonging. So for example, I enjoy conducting research. This one here is more strongly endorsed by STEM success participants than by non-participants. And that speaks to, I think, feeling that you're belonging to the scientific community where research is integral to science. Similarly, down here, conducting research is important. I have friends who can help me succeed, or the faculty support me. Those speak to sense of belonging to the institution. I have a mentor up here is also one where you see a large difference between the groups. And one thing I did want to point out is that students are self-selecting into these programs, so there's always a concern whether these are students that would be doing better anyhow. But if you look at this slide here where you don't see a lot of differences, that speaks to the fact that the students do share a lot of similarities. And we think that these differences that we see here are due to the programs themselves. Later on, when we have more data, we'll do a propensity score analysis and try to see whether we can more firmly decide that those differences are in fact due to the programs. And lastly here, we're comparing the 2 programs with each other. So these are students who participated in only SDA or only RISE. This top one here is actually an advantage for the students who are in SDA. That gets at growth mindset, and we want students to disagree with this statement. We don't want students to believe that they have to have a special talent to succeed in their major. So the fact that SDA has a significantly lower score than RISE suggests that students in SDA are getting more of that growth mindset. These other 3 bars here are statistically significant differences in favor of the RISE program, the research program. Interestingly, we see a difference that the students who are in RISE, which doesn't nearly have as much of a social component as SDA, those students are more strongly endorsing that they have friends who can help me succeed. So we're in the process now of doing social network analysis, and we'll try to understand better what that finding actually means. And then down here, we have some differences where the groups are pretty comparable. And then we just thought we'd finish up with suggesting some things that we could look at but aren't looking at right now. These are things that perhaps would work at the institutions that our audience is at. So one thing we haven't been doing is looking at the students who switch into STEM, and there aren't a whole lot of those, but we do know that a lot of the students who don't get into our nursing program, which is an impacted program, a lot of them do go into biology, or at least we think they would like to go into biology, but we have some structural issues that make that a challenging transition. So not as many of those nursing students transfer into biology as we think could happen. We don't involve the family as much as perhaps we should. Iqbal mentioned that we do have that poster session at the end of each SDA where the family comes in, but that's something that we could probably do a lot more with, and I think that would help with our students as well. We're not doing as much linking of our students to professionals as we could. That is something that Bakersfield talked about. And then lastly, for anybody who's looking for ideas, I think we can recommend Excellency in Education. They have a database called Growing What Works. And there's a whole lot of programs there with a whole lot of ideas, and there's data behind all of those that speak to the success of those particular approaches. So here's our contact details. You're welcome to contact any of us with questions that you might have, but I think we're going to turn it over to all of you right now to answer the questions that you have at the moment. But please email us if you want any additional information from us, or you have questions that come up after the webinar.
All right. Veronica, should we answer the questions now?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for that presentation. I think it would be a good time to start answering some questions. I think Jamie and Charles answered a few already in the Q&A box. We also have one from Inez that's in the chat box, and I think this is specific to Iqbal and Harold, your presentation. She asked, I'm wondering if the RISE program that you have at Stanislaus is funded by the HSI-STEM grant that you received, and if so, how will it be sustained once the grant sunsets?
Yeah, so that actually is a great question, and it involves conversations we're having on our campus right now. So one of the things we do know is the scale that we're operating at right now, we'll probably have to sort of reduce the scale of RISE, which means, you know, it might be challenging to have around 20 faculty and 40 students on this project as we try to institutionalize this. We've been talking about creating a course that would be 1 unit for 3 semesters in a row. And right now, you know, the students get $14 an hour, but we're thinking if we can turn that, the 3-unit class that they would take over a course of 3 semesters into a GE course, the students will get, you know, units from it, and they'll also satisfy a GE requirement. So we're sort of at the brainstorming stages with RISE, but that's one of our options. We're also looking at industries. So we're working with our career center to look at partners. You know, being in the Central Valley, we have a lot of wine production, and we have some companies, you know, that operate from the Central Valley, and they're highly interested in recruiting state students. So we're seeing if there might be interest in industry to sponsor student research here on campus. But right now, those are all discussions we're having. Really haven't found that clear path yet.
I will say we have asked the students and the faculty how much the financial component is important to them, and they say it's not that critical. So I mean, we don't know for sure until we actually get into a situation where we're not able to provide that. But we're hopeful that if we take that away and replace it with something else of value to people, that we'll be able to sustain this.
And it looks like we have another question regarding the SDA program. It says 2 weeks for SDA. How was that time frame selected? Seems really intense. And that question's from Marvin.
Yeah, I can. So actually, the interesting thing is our first year, it was a 4-week program for 24 students. And we thought it was really intense on the students. When we collected feedback at the end, the students mentioned that, you know, 4 weeks is a really long time. It's a big sacrifice to, you know, give up a whole month in your summer before you start college. So we actually evolved from a 4-week model. We figured we can actually serve double the number of students if we segment the 4 weeks into 2 separate 2-week sessions. We did get positive feedback from the students. So they said that 2 week was just enough. And we start on a Sunday and then we go through the whole week. And then in the second week, we end on a Friday. So they're pretty much just giving up 1 weekend in between.
Yeah, and we also ask the students to keep diaries while they're engaged in the SDA. And 1 week does not seem to be enough. And that's based on our finding that one of the big concerns students have is they're worried about not knowing anybody. And that feeling persists through the first weekend that they're here on campus. And it's starting in that second week that they start to feel comfortable and that they have people that they can truly call their friends.
We have another question that's been up for a while, and that's been in the Q&A box. Doron, I don't want to, sorry if I mispronounce your name. The question is, I would be curious about the instrument and or survey used to assess belonging across the 3 dimensions mentioned. And I think this was earlier in the presentation, so that question might be for Charles and Jamie, but maybe whoever wants to speak about that, you could.
Well, and I think Bakersfield also gathers their own data. So we have a homegrown instrument that we're using. That's this one that we administer at the start of each semester. I won't say it's the greatest, but when you want to get a lot of responses, you can't have a very long survey. So this one only has 20 some odd questions. It takes about 8 to 10 minutes for the average student to complete. We do ask directly about whether you feel you belong in your current major. We do have some other questions that we think tap into those other levels of belonging as well. And then there's some other issues that we think our faculty want to learn about. I won't say it's the greatest measure out there, but it does seem to be one that gives us some confidence that we are helping to move the students in the direction we'd like to see them move.
And I don't know if Charles and Jamie, Charles, if you want to answer the question as well.
We have similar measurements. We also have a short survey to measure the engagement. And also we have some focus groups that we do on the side.
Okay. We also have another question from Anonymous. What assessment do you use to identify the reasons students leave STEM? How is the question about belonging worded? What does it ask?
Yeah, so on that one, students are presented with a list of reasons, potential reasons. Those are drawn from the literature. Again, it's a homegrown instrument. It's kind of messy to look at. I'd be happy to send it out to people, but it's messy to look at because the wording differs depending upon whether they are switching majors, declaring majors, adding a second major, or dropping a second major. But the question would typically ask something like, I feel more comfortable in, and then it would insert in the survey their new major name than in, and then their old major name. So it's tailored directly to the particular majors if they're switching. And that's the wording that's used. I feel more comfortable in than in whatever.
Okay. We have another question by Marty. Are interventions being done at the classroom level, such as training instructors in formative assessment techniques? Maybe if Iqbal and Harold, you can take it first, and then maybe Charles.
We have other grants that look at that. So we have an NSF grant that's dealing directly with that, and we have another NSF grant we just received, which is being shared with Bakersfield and with Fresno, which is going to be looking at changing particular courses. So at Bakersfield, it'll be an intro chemistry course. On our campus, it'll be a statistics course. So we are looking at that, but not through this particular grant.
Yeah, not in this particular grant as well. However, we have regular meetings with our instructors, and when instructors feel that interventions needs to be done, they'll communicate to us and we'll cooperate with them as much as we can.
Fantastic. And I know, I think Iqbal and Harold, you answered the question about sustaining these programs after the grant ends. But Charles, did you want to also answer that question as well? I know Suzanne also asked the same question in the Q&A about how do you sustain these types of programs after the grant?
Okay, so we are constantly evaluating which components that we want to keep, and one of the major things that we want to keep is the concept of cohort enrollment. So for this, we are in the science programs, we are actually piloting cohort enrollment, and the university is actually taking up the initiative as well and try to launch it university-wide. So this component is likely to be institutionalized. And for the other programs, say for SIs, the university is also on board. So we are basically doing it one component at a time and work with the university on once they agree to be.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have any more questions? I'm not sure if there's any. Oh, there's another question in the chat by Lynn. It says, thank you for sharing your projects. They look like they do great things for students. Does this program have any impact on faculty who are not directly involved? I'm wondering if this program is helping you change what some called the quote unquote unfriendly competitive STEM culture. I don't know who wants to answer that.
Well, that is a great question. I think it's really challenging to get information about that. We do, I'm on the faculty here as well in psychology, and occasionally I hear comments that really make me think, oh my goodness, is this really going on our campus? So it's hard to tap into that, and students I think are sometimes reluctant to share that. I did mention this other grant that we're working on that is specifically trying to address not just that, but some other issues about faculty needing to think about the students more in terms of the way that they structure their courses. So being culturally sensitive, for example. So I think we're doing that, but again, we're not doing that necessarily through this grant. And I would be surprised if we're getting a lot of change in that very important construct through the activities we're doing. These are much more student focused.
And at CSUB, we try to work with faculty who are open-minded and slowly try to change the mentality of the faculty that are skeptic at the beginning. So far, we don't face any problems.
Okay, it looks like we have another question from Claudia. Will the evaluation efforts of SDA and RISE include enrollment into graduate school, PhD, or master's?
Yes, so for SDA, since the students are incoming freshmen and transfer student, we just do one workshop on graduate school opportunities. But I would say mainly in RISE is where we focus on preparing for graduate school and exposing students to more resources related to graduate school. One of the workshops we do during our RISE student meeting is we invite speakers from other programs we have on campus, such as the McNair Scholars Program. And they come and they inform the students about opportunities available here on campus that can assist with grad school. Apart from that, I think just the simple fact that the students are working directly with faculty mentors who are, a direct source for the students to know about what it takes, to go through grad school and then, seek employment afterwards. I think that's also a plus we have under the RISE program. But I would say in the SDA, right now, we're sort of more focused upon making sure they have a successful undergraduate career.
And I'll also add, for the Title III grants, that's not one of their desired outcomes. And certainly I think a lot of us would feel it's a good outcome, but it's not the targeted outcome for those particular grants. NSF, on the other hand, does look at that. So I'm mentioning this because, Beatrice, if you're listening and you want to allocate some funds for us study students going to grad school, we can do that. And we'd have to probably tap into the National Student Clearinghouse to get a sense of how that's working out for our students.
Okay, we have one more question. We have a couple more questions in the Q&A. One of them is from Melissa. The SDA program runs from morning to evening. A lot of low-income students would be working part or full-time during those days before the semester begins. Do you have any systems in place to encourage participation of high-achieving low-income students?
Yes, so for SDA, one of the things that we've learned through trials is that recruitment is key. And, you know, we're in a region where a lot of students, you know, they're high achieving, but they also are first generation and low income. So one of the things we do is we sort of get a head start in informing students about SDA to allow them, you know, months in advance to sort of plan out their summer. And a lot of our transfer students, they, you know, not only have to work, but they also have family responsibilities. And some of the transfer students can be more, you know, mature than the incoming freshman student. So for our transfer student, it is not mandatory for them to stay in the dorms. And we do allow a little bit of flexibility with them.
Perfect. Well, it's I see that we've reached the end of the hour. So I encourage you to reach out to our panelists if you have any more questions. I'm sorry, there were a few more, there was maybe a couple questions we weren't able to get through today, but please feel free to email the panelists directly. Again, this webinar is being recorded. It will be closed captioned and uploaded to our HSI-STEM website. Everyone who registered for the webinar will receive an email with information on how to access that recording. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Right.